Hey guys, David here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that I feel is really common in, say, a lot of our journeys of life and as well learning a language. After some period of time when we've been working on a language is we start to lose motivation and understanding for okay, why was I so interested in this or why was I so dedicated to this for months, and then all of a sudden I'm having all this resistance and pressure. And I want to just tell you from the beginning, this is super common. Same as you most likely is, I was an adult language learner when I started learning Chinese, and also an adult language learner when I started learning Spanish. Learning a second language or a third language as an adult is not an easy task, and it does require some discipline and motivation in order to keep yourself interested and as well excited in learning this language. But fear not, I want to tell you it's happened to me so many times on my journey of learning Chinese, and so I want to give you some of the ideas and tips that worked really well for me and my path of, say, getting to Chinese fluency, and as well how this can help you in your path of learning Chinese or any other language that you're working with. The most interesting thing is, I think about most of these tips is it's not actually just specific to language learning. It's almost a specific thing to pretty much anything that's new in your life. Just getting started, I want to give you guys a little bit of an example about something that happened in my life and where I've had difficulties in my own personal motivation in learning Chinese. And I had started learning Chinese for about 4 or 5 months, and I was coming back to Canada after I had been doing my study abroad in China. I immediately went from an environment that had Chinese native speakers every day to an environment with essentially no native speakers or nobody that I could practice with. At first, I was really disappointed about this, and also kind of lost my motivation too, just because I didn't have as many opportunities every single day to speak. But you know what, it actually taught me a lot of really good tips that I'm going to share with you today about how you can create your own environment or keep your motivation up in a situation like this. A second example was after I moved back to North America from Singapore, I had a similar type of fears, hey, am I not going to have anybody to practice Chinese with here in North America? And I started to lose my motivation for learning at that particular point in time too. What I found was after some period of time it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was, and I actually had lots of different people that I could practice with and different ways that I could continue my studying and keep my motivation high. But I just want to assure you that no matter your situation right now or where you are studying, there's certainly going to be some methods for you that I'll share, and let's get into this. One of the first things that I think about with motivation is sometimes we see a goal that we set out far away. So say I want to become fluent in Chinese. But in that path is that there's still so much left to do that we almost overwhelm ourselves, or can kind of be oh man, I have so much more work left to do and I'm just getting started right now. How do I solve this? How do I fix this particular problem? And I feel sometimes that can be where, say, our motivation or some of our friction in our learning process can begin. I think one of the first things that we can do actually in, say, fixing our motivation for this particular issue is that we can do two particular things. With number one is we need to set very clear goals. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of SMART goals before, but basically they're kind of strategic goals with a timeline involved. So the first thing that you can do to, say, increasing your motivation or working towards solving your motivation is using SMART goals. Instead of, say, having something in your mind okay, I want to become fluent in Chinese without a timeline, you basically can come up with a more specific task that you want to master and then utilize that particular task with a time criteria associated with it. Let me give you an example. I want to learn 20 new Chinese characters a week for 12 weeks or 3 months. Okay, so here's your particular goal, that basically instead of just saying I want to learn 250 new characters in 3 months, for example, that you've actually broken it down up more into a more digestible form, which is essentially a week-by-week basis, and then 20 characters a week for those 12 particular weeks that you're going to be learning for. And the nice thing about this that I feel is that because you're not, say, giving yourself such an overwhelming goal with no particular criteria in terms of time and how long you're going to be doing it for, it actually makes it easier for you as the learner because you're setting up a criteria from the beginning that you can easily associate with or continue to follow as you go along in your learning journey, which I think is great. The second great thing that this particular action does is it basically allows you to break down a larger goal into more digestible or smaller chunks. And I think this is really crucial in just about any particular process, especially something big in life, because I think most of us realize that if we want to have things that are done really well or these big goals, Big goals cannot be done quickly. There's things that require a lot of time and a lot of dedication and discipline in order to achieve it. Actually, with your particular goal, you've now created it into more digestible, bite-sized format, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to attain and achieve because of that. So using these two together, basically the large goal and the small bite-sized chunks, and then as well using SMART goals, so a more specific criteria plus a particular amount of time, these two together can help you a lot. This next one is going to sound so straightforward and easy, but I'm not kidding you, it is so crucial in order to maintaining motivation. And I have this happen to me all the time with Spanish and Chinese. And this is just setting aside time to do regular practice every single day. And it doesn't have to be that much time, it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day. And no matter however you want to do it, like Duolingo, using cue cards, watching a TV show, watching a movie, listening to music, it's all helpful. The point is something like this. You give your brain exposure every single day in your target language will make your learning of that language actually much easier because it's kind of reducing the friction required for you to start and learn every single day. Let me give you a different way to think about this. There's a book that basically talks about compounding, and within what the book is, one of the things that the author talks about is that compounding is the key. And I kind of believe this too with my own life, is that in order for us to achieve, like say a large goal or whatnot, is we actually need to compound essentially every single day, because in that way we can kind of build up from our previous day's work, right? Versus if you ever have thought about something like going to the gym, for example. Let's say if you and I go to the gym 5 days a week, every week for 5 months, it's gonna feel really easy the next week to go. However, if we're very inconsistent with our schedule of going to the gym, the next time we want to go to the gym, it's going to feel harder than the time before when we were going to the gym. You see the pattern I'm getting at here? So this is why I think actually just setting aside 5 to 10 minutes a day of studying a language like Chinese is so crucial. And what you'll find is if you actually set aside the time to do this, it's going to get so much easier for you to actually study and learn every day, because it's going to become part of your routine and it's going to seem less of a chore when you're actually doing Chinese as well too. If you can implement this 5 or 10 minutes of practice a day into your Chinese studying, I think you're going to see a lot of gains out of it. The next thing that I want to recommend is one of two things. First of all is having an accountability partner for your studies. And the second thing is joining a community either online or in person of people also studying Chinese and creating basically a bond together of how you guys can progress forward learning the language together. For the first piece of, say, having a study partner or an accountability partner of learning Chinese is, I think the way that we can think about this, it's somebody that can help you after, say, every week or every month, just a quick check-in. It could be a text message, it could be a phone call, maybe one of your practice friends together, and just letting each other know, how did this week go? What went well? What didn't go so well? Maybe what were some of your roadblocks or things that you found you had troubles with? Or perhaps any cool study techniques or study tools that you found during the week when you were studying. The opposite of this is the study group. So I think basically is like you can find some types of like study communities, say on Reddit or other places that will allow you to basically meet like-minded people who are also learning the language. And I think in that way it's great because you can share ideas together, you can basically stay committed to your language learning and your love of the language together. And in that way is that like everybody's just gonna keep growing and getting better together. So these are friends that you can make through your language learning journey, but perhaps keep much longer afterwards because you have this common interest and you're gonna keep growing and getting better together. And finally, I think an awesome way to stay motivated is by doing one of two things. One is basically just giving yourself positive self-talk, and two is celebrating the small wins. I'm gonna start first on the positive self-talk piece. Even for myself sometimes, I feel like I have been kind of like semi-critical to myself during my journey of, say, learning Spanish and learning Chinese. And I think part of this for me has just been because I kind of hold myself like with pretty high expectations on myself and a lot of things that I do. And even though, I probably am doing a great job, as I can kind of say like, give myself a little bit of like negative self-talk, like, are you good enough? Have you been putting in enough time? And the way that I think about this afterwards is, after I took some time to digest this, is that, you know what, every single day that we're putting in even the smallest amount of time to work towards, say, studying our language and putting time into getting better, that's a day that we can celebrate, right? You know, no matter if it was just 5 seconds or 10 seconds that you and I were putting in to, say, study Chinese or work on this particular task that we're doing, it's 5 or 10 seconds more than we had beforehand yesterday. And like I said, with the compounding is key portion of my chat today too, is that even 5 or 10 seconds, I mean, it's just gonna keep growing and growing and growing, getting better and better, right? So that little bit that we're putting in every single day is going to help big time in the long run. Second thing that I'm thinking about too is, you know, celebrating the small wins. Even if it's just something as small as, say, you had a conversation at a Chinese restaurant and ordered in Chinese, or you learned a new word or learned a new sentence and it was really cool. I mean, all these things are beneficial and important and can give you this positive feedback when it comes to learning. So I think in this case, it's also something really positive to celebrate and win. And with that being said, those are a few of my ideas around how we can increase our motivation and our path and journey of learning Chinese, and some of the things that I found have been beneficial for me. If you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be creating more content, I think, around actually influencing people learning Chinese again. I think this is honestly where the core criteria and content of this channel should come from. It's where I have the strongest passion, you know, even though I can definitely make videos about traveling and, say, enjoying my life, is that, you know what, ultimately at the end of the day, I wanna have more people enjoy their process of learning Chinese, more people connecting with a Chinese community in China and abroad, and also people just learning Chinese and being interested in it. And so I want to do what I can on my part to share my experience as an adult language learner and the difficulties I overcame to make your experience as an adult language learner easier. And if I've helped you do that today or in any of my other videos, I would highly appreciate you share it with your friend. And with that being said, look forward to seeing you guys next time. See you.